Hello everyone, TLSG here, back again with another Marvel Snap video. So we are getting really close to the end of our collection log. Yesterday we ended up pulling Cerebro, and today we have a new featured location. I think this week I'm going to go ahead and continue trying to push for collection log, and I'll just give some tips on the location along the way. But before we pull our new card, we are at, as of the time of recording this video, we are at 1,960 subs, just a few off of 2,000. We might not quite be there at the start of this video. It really depends on how the rest of the day goes, but thank you guys so much. I think we should be able to hit 2,000 with this video if we didn't hit it before. This is, for all intensive purposes, this is going to be our celebration video. I am going to go into this one assuming that we hit 2,000 off of this, and thank you guys so much for all of the support over the last couple weeks as I continue to plug our sub count in each video to help us push up over that 2,000 mark. You guys are absolutely incredible. Thank you guys for coming back time and time again to check out and enjoy the content. Our little community is growing so quickly. It seems like just yesterday we were like 50 people, 100 people, and it has jumped so quickly to now being at 2,000. I can't even, it blows my mind. I can only imagine what's in store for the future of this channel as the game continues to grow and progress. So with that being said, let's go ahead and start pulling our collector's reserve. 400 credits. I have never seen that high of an amount. Oh my God, that almost gets you all the way to the next collector's reserve. That's huge. And then 200 credits. My gosh. And then a new avatar. We have Polaris, and then 200 more credits. Okay, so it's a pretty good gap. We haven't had a long gap like this in a while. So that's, I mean, I think it's long overdue. And we have plenty of collector's reserves and credits to be able to push through and make sure we get a card here. So then 200 gold, okay. So not bad. All of these have been okay. And then so then we get our new card, and it is Drax. So Drax is a difficult one. So Drax has the on reveal, just like all of the other Guardians of the Galaxy. He has the on reveal if your opponent played a card here this turn, plus 4 power. So this becomes, if you hit the trigger, a 4-cost 8 power card, but you could always run something like a Crossbones, which is a 4-cost 8 power card, but you have to be winning that location to drop it. This one is a little difficult to use, or even a Devil Dino, which is often a 4-cost 10 power, 12 power card. So Drax is a little difficult, but I do have an idea in mind to work around him. Now with Drax, he's not going to be completely polarizing of the deck list like Cerebro or like some of our other cards, but I do think he has a pretty good spot in at least one deck that I have in mind. And then of course it'll be fun to make like a Guardians of the Galaxy only deck at some point, but I am going to go ahead and jump over into the deck draft, and I will be right back. All right, so we did draft a deck, and I don't know, I'm actually pretty excited to try this one. So what we wanted to do, the main goal, was to find a way to make Drax impactful. And so I feel like a good combination is going to be a Storm followed by a Drax play. That is going to allow us to push an additional 8 power into the lane, which is hard to compete with. And then as a backup, we still do have our cute little Juggernaut that is going to be able to push the cards out of that stormed lane. And then on the following turn, on turn 5, we typically want to try to drop a Spider-Man into a lane that we already have a pretty good lead in. And then we can follow it up on turn 6 with Iron Man, maybe an Iron Man, Raccoon in one of the other lanes. But the idea is to be winning by enough in one lane by the time you drop Storm that the rest of the game you can really focus on slowing down their tempo and still be able to win. And so then let's say we don't draw into Drax or Juggernaut. We play Storm. We also added in, to go along with the theme of Guardians of the Galaxy, we added in Rocket and Star-Lord. So both of these are going to be able to be dropped on turn 4. And it could be argued that we could put Groot in Star-Lord's place to be able to drop both Groot and Rocket. But Groot seems like he's in a kind of a weird spot. And so I think the earlier game, we don't want to always rely on that. That's just like a backup plan. And so ideally what we want to do is have these dropped maybe earlier. That way we can be winning one of those other lanes on turn 5 to comfortably drop our Spider-Man. And so this is definitely a TLSG special. This is not something I've ever seen. I've only seen Drax like a handful of times. This is definitely a TLSG special. So let me run through all of the cards really quickly and give a rundown on why they're in this deck. So first up, we have Sunspot. Sunspot is going to be a good card to drop on turn 1, and then either follow it up on turn 3 with a Storm in that lane, Or if we think we can win the other lane, we can have Sunspot in one lane, Storm another location. That way we have the additional power already in a lane to drop our Iron Man, drop a Magneto, drop those additional late game resources into. We have Rocket Raccoon going with a thematic approach of Guardians of the Galaxy. Whenever we limit the space that the opponent has to play in, he actually feels pretty decent. So let's say that on 5, we drop Spider-Man. After we had already locked down a lane with Storm, we know that they are going to play, if they play cards, in that one particular lane. We can then drop both Iron Man and Raccoon to have an 8 power swing, plus whatever power we had there beforehand is going to be doubled as well. So I think we can even sneak some lanes with a Iron Man Raccoon combo on turn 6. It's going to be super niche. It's not going to happen all the time, but I think it has a pretty good possibility of happening. Then we have Star-Lord, who helps us win early game so that we can slow down their late game plays. We have Mysterio as a really high power 2-cost card. Again, we want to focus on winning the early game so that we can focus on controlling the late game. Then we have Storm, who on reveal is going to flood that location. This is going to be great to either change an unfavorable lane or just typically lock down a location. So we can drop Storm and then either Juggernaut or Drax, and both are going to have a pretty high possibility of winning that lane. And then on the off chance that we don't, we're also running Dr. Doom, who's going to be able to push those Doom bots into that flooded lane to give it that little bit of extra power push to push it up over and win. So we have Juggernaut, who is primarily here to follow up Storm. However, if we already have a stormed lane locked down and it's a pretty close margin, then we're not going to drop Juggernaut anymore if we haven't already, because we don't want to push those cards into the lane unfavorably. And so he has some pretty good usage, but he's not going to be used every single game. We have Spider-Man, who's kind of tricky to use. He is definitely a turn 5 card rather than a turn 4, because his on reveal, your opponent can't play cards at this location next turn. So that is going to allow us to reliably read where the opponents are going to play and reliably read what power level they're going to have in which lanes. We have Shang-Chi, so sometimes if we have a flooded lane locked down, that's going to force the opponent to play most of their big cards into one particular lane. Shang-Chi is going to allow us to sneakily swing that lane back in our favor when we already have the lockdown lane 1, and I think he's going to be able to sneak out quite a few wins. We have our new card in Drax, which Drax on first glance can feel underwhelming, but at 4 cost, he's in a little bit of a weird spot, but I think he does have some pretty decent usage. He's not cheap enough to be able to drop and then pull back in with Beast. He's a little bit too unimpactful to be able to drop and then drop an Odin on top of him to re-trigger that on reveal. His really niche usage feels like it's going to be good in that Storm Drax combo. Then we have Iron Man, so after we lock down the flooded lane, we're going to need a way to push a lot of power quickly into one of the last 2 remaining lanes, and Iron Man is here to do that. We have Dr. Doom, so sometimes we're going to need just a little bit of extra power into the other 2 lanes, and Dr. Doom is going to be able to do that. He is a 5 power card, but he creates 5 power Doom bots in the other 2 locations for us. And then for the games where we don't need Dr. Doom, sometimes we need to pull and redirect their cards. We're going to be able to do that with a Magneto. So maybe they did outpower us in the Storm lane. Maybe they had initiative and they dropped Juggernaut before we dropped our Drax or our Juggernaut, and we need to pull their cards out. Magneto is able to trigger and hit both Storm and Juggernaut, or Storm and Drax, to really pull away and isolate that location. And so that is the idea, that is the rundown of this deck list. I'm actually pretty excited because this is one that is very unique. It's not one that I've ran in a while, and it kind of goes up that alley that I enjoy in like that lane lockdown, that kind of control aspect. But to be able to control the late game, and I've said it a couple times, we have to be able to reliably win the early game. And so we are going to go ahead and jump into a few games. I hope you enjoy. So first up we have Solarius, and the first location was Elysium here. So I think we're going to go ahead and drop our Sunspot. I don't know. I kind of want to drop one of our other 2 cards. I'm going to go ahead and drop Star-Lord as well. I feel like they will very likely drop a card into Elysium this turn, given that we have the discount. I wasn't confident enough to play into one of the unknown locations. That's why we stack the cards here. And so then it's Monster Metropolis, which is okay. We don't have any of our big lockdown cards just yet. I think what we do we play both of our cards here? That is going to put a token into this unknown location. So if this turns out to be that negative location where it adds -1 power after each turn, then we may end up regretting dropping Mysterio this early. But I think there is a good likelihood that they drop something like a Nova and a Carnage this turn to clear out this lane, and we could get the upside from our rocket. And they didn't. Ooh, we read it wrong. Okay. And so we do end up, we have the 5 power Mysterio here. We have the 2 power rocket. And so then they drop a Cosmo. And so we're not going to be able to do any on-reveal abilities here. Ooh, and it is that negative location, unfortunately, for us here. And we have Shang-Chi that we can play, but we don't necessarily need to. This Mysterio token is going to be pretty... it's very unfortunate for it's very unfortunate for us here. Maybe we can change it with like a Storm, and that's not great. So maybe we do a Juggernaut instead. We have initiative, so maybe we can push a Carnage or a Nova Carnage off over here, blocking their Bucky Barnes. Nope. Okay. So maybe they're doing a Hobgoblin. So we do probably need to give up this location because we don't have any way to send that back, which is okay. Not great, but it's okay. So on-reveal abilities are not going to trigger here. I feel like we're going to have a pretty big card in like a Carnage here for next turn. So I'm going to go ahead and do our Iron Man into Elysium, which should let us propel up over whatever they end up dropping here. That allows us to still drop our Shang-Chi next turn if we need to. And so we are ahead in this lane. They drop a Professor X to lock that one down, which we had given up on that lane anyways. And so now we get the Storm, but it's a little bit too late. We still have initiative. The only way that we can win this one is if we can come up over their power level, which I don't think we do. I think they drop a Carnage. It gets up over where it will get that Monster Metropolis buff. But since we can't drop our Shang-Chi since we reveal first, Drax is going to be our best shot here. And then we do know that we have the 5 power from Mysterio that will come in after everything reveals. Okay, and so I guess they may not have had that destruction mechanism. They didn't have a good way to push up over this power level. So we did end up being able to pull that one out, even though this location was really, really unfortunate for us. All right, so next up we have Fold You Skies or Folduskis. One of the two, but the first location is, I'm afraid to say new names now. It is the new featured location. After the Biofreeze incident, I am afraid to say new ones because I may pronounce them incorrectly. So we are not going to play Sunspot in that location. We're going to drop him into the unknown, and we're going to focus our power on these 2 locations as long as these aren't unfavorable for us. And so we do have Storm here, so we know that we're going to be able to drop Storm on turn 3 here, and it's going to be the only card in the lane, unless they decided to change it themselves. But they would have been anticipating that the cards that they dropped into Murder World would be destroyed. And so we should be able to get a free drop here. We just have to hope that we draw into either Juggernaut or our new card of Drax, so that we can lock down this middle location. And so they do end up dropping a Shocker. So that is typical for like a Patriot deck, something that is going to buff. So what they get Washington D.C. here, which cards with no abilities have +3 power in this location, which Shocker happens to be one of the very few cards that have that. So instead of dropping Storm into Murder World, we are going to drop Storm into Washington D.C. here. We cannot have huge tokens running around just destroying our power level. So we are going to change it. It's going to reduce their power level by 6. And then if we draw into Drax, maybe we can push it and cap it out. We don't. So instead, we can do a Mysterio and a Raccoon, which is going to be 9 power. And then it's going to be a 10 power push with our Sunspot. That might be overcommitting though, because then even if we do a turn 5 Spider-Man, followed by like a turn 6 Iron Man, we might be able to do a turn 5 Spider-Man and then a turn 6 Magneto and not use our Iron Man in this game. And so we do drop. Oh, so they ramp, really? And then they drop Mysterio here. Interesting. Okay. So they ramp up, which is going to give them 6 power. I anticipate that they do maybe an Onslaught, and then next turn would be a Mystique and a Patriot, at which point we are going to have a really tough time winning. So where do we think they're going to drop their 6 power card. I think they're going to drop it into Murder World because they're going to be at a disadvantage in this location. So I think we can limit them from being able to drop cards here next turn and really disrupt their Onslaught, Mystique, Patriot combo is my thought process right now. So this Onslaught, is this an Onslaught? Onslaught, we had the right call. Okay, and so now they can still do a Mystique and a Patriot. And maybe they just had a Patriot, they didn't have the Mystique, which they would need Onslaught to be able to expand and increase that power bonus to their tokens by from +2 to +4. But by being able to lock down Murder World, they're not able to play there anymore. We got the correct read, the correct call. So very, very nice. We will take that. All right, so next up we have Valraz. And starting off, we have Wakanda as the first location. We do know that we're going to be able to change that if we need to. Is this another Patriot deck? What is with Patriot today? And so the big house, 4, 5, and 6 cost cards can't be played here. I almost think maybe we drop our Sunspot and let him buff up by 1. The other alternative would be dropping Mysterio, but this location is still unknown. So I don't really want to do that just yet. And so then whoever is winning this location gets +3 at the others. So I think we change this location. Next turn, depending on what we draw into, maybe we drop our Mysterio here and let them think that it was dropped into the big house. We know that we're going to be able to push an additional 5 power into the flooded lane on turn 6 from our Dr. Doom. So I think that's just nefarious and just sneaky enough to work. And probably, potentially, win us the game. Ideally, it would win us the game. And so we do draw into Juggernaut here. So maybe we don't drop our Mysterio this turn. It was a good idea, a good play line. But maybe we don't. So they have Patriot. We know that they are going to drop a bunch of tokens. So I would anticipate like a Dr. Doom, like their own version of Dr. Doom. I think we're going to need more power than just 5 additional in this lane to win it. Because I would anticipate like either a Dr. Doom or maybe even a Patriot or maybe even an Ultron in this lane. And so no, they go with Mystique instead. Okay. So we should have went with our Mysterio play. But this is a pretty solid play line. But if we can win this lane, then we can get a pretty decent upside. So we can either do an Iron Man, which would turn a 12 power Magneto into a 24, or we can do a Mysterio and a Star-Lord, and then next turn we can drop our Dr. Doom, which would end up being a 12 power lane, but it helps us lock down this one. I think that's what we're going to end up going with. So they do a Debris. Oh no. Oh, that's so terrible. Oh, that's unfortunate. We can't do our Dr. Doom play anymore. Oy, that is a tough one. So now, let's say they have an Odin or an Onslaught. If they have an Onslaught, they just destroyed us with the Patriot Mystique. Patriot Mystique is definitely a tough combo to go against. Very, very tough to compete against. Our only chance here is to drop Magneto and get this 3 power bonus shifted back our way. But even if they have an Onslaught here, maybe not. Or if they have an Odin to re-trigger Debris. Onslaught? No, not an Onslaught. An Iron Man. Oh no. So that's just 10. We actually can come up over that. And so I think we're okay. We got pretty lucky that they dropped an Iron Man, but they didn't have much power in the lane. They weren't able to hold and lock down Baxter Building. I'm telling you, sometimes Patriot Mystique can be just an absolute unit. And the Wasp here, it was actually, I haven't thought about Wasp in a Patriot deck. That's a 0 cost token, so that's a free drop onto the board that you can do late game. So had they had an extra slot here, they could have done a Wasp and maybe pushed it over had they split their Patriot and Mystique. Just so many opportunities, and that was very, very close, Valraz. Very, very close. All right, so next up we have Merc, and our starting location is the Dark Dimension, so the cards that we play there are not revealed until the end of the game. So that one's a little bit difficult for us to play in. The second one being Wakanda. I kind of think that we drop our Mysterio here. Do we drop our Mysterio into the unknown location and make them think that we dropped it into Wakanda? I'm going to go ahead and go with that play. And then they drop a Scorpion, which is very fitting for their avatar. I wonder if they're running that because they're using that avatar. And so as long as this is not it's the new location, which is awful. It's awful for us because we didn't build around that location. We built around either changing or avoiding that location. Now you could run things like a Colossus, Professor X, a few different things to be able to lock down this lane, but just very unfortunate. So I guess we will figure out if the negative power impact from this location sticks after it turns into Mysterio. At the very least, we'll figure that out. I'm going to go ahead and Juggernaut this turn and hope that they don't. Hope that they drop a resource into Wakanda, which they don't. Why would they do that? Do we do our 2 Guardians of the Galaxy into the Dark Dimension as a way to kind of push a little bit of extra power? I think that's an okay play line. It's not great, but I think it's okay. And so then turn 5, we can also do our Drax here. Or do we do our Drax here? Then we do a Doctor Doom to push a 5-power bot here and a 5-power bot here. The other play line is we do Drax here. Turn 6, we do Magneto here, which would pull their Nakia, maybe any other card. I think we just go with the Drax play. I think that's going to be a better idea to push our power overall, and they don't play a card. We're getting so low rolled. Okay, so they don't play a card into Wakanda here, so that's pretty unfortunate. I don't even. Okay, if nothing else, we're gonna push bots into these other 2 lanes. We're gonna get an idea of if Mysterio holds this negative buff after his token changes. If not, that's pretty big upside. And they extend the game with magic. Oh my gosh, I don't know what they're doing. But we are capped out in the left and the right lanes now. Kind of unfortunate. So the best play that we have is going to be our Magneto to pull over any 3 or 4 cost cards, so mainly Nakia, to hopefully help us win Wakanda. With these cards, I have no idea what it is. But right now, Mysterio is -3. We're going to see if he becomes a 2-power after he flips, or if he goes back to 5-power since this is the Mysterio token. And so then they drop a card into Wakanda and a card into the Dark Dimension. We have no idea if we can beat this power level here, but we do know that 2 of these cards are going to get buffed up because they played a card here this turn. So our Star-Lord and our Rocket are going to get buffed up. Hopefully that's enough, but I doubt it. Especially with that. Oof. And is this a Gambit? No, it's a White Tiger. Okay, maybe we have a shot here. It has to split though. Oh my gosh, that is just the worst win I think we've ever had. So that's what you get when you homebrew. You get the homebrew special. I had no idea how that one was going to resolve. There was just so much unknown. Luckily, our Star-Lord and our Doombot here was able to push us up over. And then also, luckily enough, actually no, even if these had not split, we would have won this lane. Yeah, so no matter how these triggered, since we had won Dark Dimension, it didn't matter. We would have won this lane had they stacked. We would have won this lane had they stacked. It's really hard to play around Dark Dimension. I guess you could change it and have them trigger mid-game to add some disruption. But very good game, Merc. Very good game. Very, very close. Okay, and so next up we have Cabeza. And we get a really good upside in Wakanda Embassy that it hits our Mysterio because our Mysterio tokens are going to retain that buff. It feels bad to drop Raccoon just on a blind drop turn 1. I think we're going to do it. I think it's... So luckily they have a Sunspot. And so we're able to get a decent upside with our Rocket here. And then we have a double on reveal. So Doctor Doom is going to be able to add 2 5-power bots to the other 2 lanes. And so if we can lock down that location, then we have a pretty big power push in 10 power to the other 2 lanes as long as we have space. I think we plan on dropping our Mysterio. We plan on using Spider-Man turn 5 into Kamartage. And then we do our Doctor Doom to push power into the other lanes, hopefully locking down Kamartage in the process. And knowing that we don't want to drop any other cards into the embassy because we want to have plenty of space to drop our double Doctor Doom. On turn 3, we don't have anything that we can play. We don't have our Storm, we don't have Juggernaut, we don't have Drax. Feels pretty bad. Now we have Storm, and so I think what we do Storm here. Next turn, they're going to think that we're going to drop resources into the Citadel for that last turn play. But we know that we're going to be able to push 10 power in that way. Oh my gosh, they drop a Storm on the other side, which is perfect because we want Kamartage as our last location. And so we can now drop our Spider-Man. That's going to allow... They're not going to be able to play on... They're not going to be able to play on turn 6. So let's go ahead and snap off of that. I feel fairly confident in this play line because maybe they're wanting to push resources off to the left or right as well with a Doctor Doom. We're going to stop them from being able to do that. I anticipate that after they see that they can't play a card on the last turn, that they will retreat, and so we want to capitalize and snap ahead of time. And so they do drop a card into this flooded lane. Oh, okay, that's fine. They use Arrow, which pulls any card that we played this turn over, but Spider-Man's ability is still going to trigger here. So we know that they can't play anything this turn. They just have to sit and watch and wait. We do know that because of that, we'll lock down Kamartage. We will lose in this flooded lane, but we have 5 power. We can push over into this other one with our Doctor Doom. Oh, so the lane... Clarice? Hey. Hi, Puppo. What is it? So yeah, you guys heard that right. Her name is Clarice. I was the one that was responsible for naming her. Imagine that. That I name her some goofy kind of pun of a name. I just wanted to be able to come home and give that classic line from Silence of the Lambs, and just as I come home, say, hello, Clarice. And just... that's what happened. And so yeah, her name is Clarice. I do have 2 other dogs, which I'm sure they'll make an appearance in some video. They're all very, very lazy, so a lot of times they're just laying around. You'll see them lounging in the background, probably in that hallway quite a bit. But so that lane lockdown of this game, back to the game, that lane lockdown felt so phenomenal. Just the fact that they happened to play Storm in the left lane when we played it in the right, just perfect. And even if they hadn't and they were able to drop resources here, we still had the upside of our Doombot, and we would have limited them from Kamartage as well for that final turn. So overall, the deck list feels pretty good. Our first 5 games out, we won every single one. After that, it was a little bit of back and forth. We lost a couple of 8-cube matches that we got a little bit overconfident on, relying on like a Shang-Chi or relying on a couple of different triggers that didn't fall our way. But overall, the deck list feels fairly solid. As a lane lockdown type deck, I think it checks all of the boxes. It checks being able to push power early. It checks being able to kind of lock down and limit lane play locations. I feel like it's a pretty solid deck list. Of course, I'm sure there can be improvements to it, but overall it feels pretty solid for a deck list that is not like a meta style list. But overall, very, very fun deck. I had a lot more fun playing Drax than I thought I would. He offers some unique capabilities in being able to be dropped on turn 4 following that Storm, which is my absolute favorite usage of him, or even late game when you know where their power is going to be. You can have an 8 power card and then still drop a Star-Lord for another 5 power to try and compete with those 6 cost cards. Overall, The deck list felt fun. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to leave a comment down below. Make sure to celebrate us hitting 2,000 subscribers together with us down in the comment section or in our Discord. We do have a small growing Discord for the channel and for all things Marvel Snap. If you enjoyed the video, give it a like, give it a comment. I am going to go ahead and end the video here though, so I hope that you guys enjoyed it. This has been TLSG. Later, guys.